to the Admin and Finance Committee today. My name is Blair Lancaster. I'll be chairing this meeting. With me today are a number of my colleagues. I'll start at the other end. Councillor Clark Somerville, Councillor Sharman, Councillor O'Meara. We have Chair Carr, Councillor Gettings, and Mayor Krantz. So thank you for joining us today. We will be doing a number of things today, but first of all, I'd like to mention that we are not making decisions. We're only making recommendations, which will go to the regular meeting of the Regional Council on June the 22nd. I will first ask everyone on the committee if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Being none, we will continue. Thank you very much. And we're going to start with staff presentations. You have a presentation material in front of you here supporting Halton Businesses to Go Global, and we'll ask John Davidson to join us.
Well, thank you very much. And through Madam Chair, it's my pleasure to present the following item with respect to report LPS 4116. Okay. So as you've seen in the report, the purpose of this report is twofold. It's simply put, with respect to recommendation number one, is to get receive council approval in principle for a new set of programming and services for the Economic Development Division to bring into implementation in 2017. So that's programming with respect to exporting and scaling up of Halton-based businesses. And secondly, the second recommendation is to investigate and have staff investigate a co-location with a provincially funded organization known as Haltec. It's a regional innovation center organization, almost like a sister delivery service compared to the region's small business enterprise center, which I'll get into. And to come back to Council in 2016 in fall, and looking at the September cycle in terms of the discussions where they've gone, as well as the cost implications of that co-location here at the HRC. So the background to this, and the reason why we're bringing forward this report, first of all, it's focused on a strategic action with respect to our 2015-18 action plan. And that is to provide programs to support Halton business success in the global marketplace. So this is very much an action that's focused on the companies that are here in our region and helping them succeed internationally. And I think as you've seen the report, there's a number of reasons why that is an important endeavor. And secondly, it also speaks to our economic development strategy, which Regional Council approved back in December of 2011. So it's 5 years old at this point and halfway through practically the strategy. But one of the strategic directions of 23 strategic directions was to actually investigate a co-location or the establishment of a business incubator style center along with Haltec and our other local partners. So this, in fact, helps us accelerate or land and address that strategic direction. So those are the two alignment areas, and this is why we're bringing forward the report. So the scale-up challenge. So this is not a Halton-only challenge. This is probably a Canadian challenge in many respects. It's about companies being able to scale up from small businesses to large businesses. And this is very significant for us to find those champions that are actually able to go out onto the world stage. In the staff report, I noted companies such as Shopify, and there's others, of course. BlackBerry is a company that started from nothing, that became a huge, well-known brand. And so we need more of these companies, these innovative growth firms, that it can actually lead to huge increases in employment. These are really pivotal for our success in the future. I'll look at an Oakville company, for instance. Geotab has a lot of those elements to it. It's globally focused. It was born global. Those are the companies that we need to have in our backyard. And I would say that we have all of the elements to have those companies in our backyard with our talented workforce and in the fact that we've got clusters of strength in professional services, technical services, engineering, and the like. So those are some of the issues in terms of what Canadian companies are facing. Ontario companies, we're generally not doing as well as other nations are doing. We're very good as a nation, as a province, and as a region in terms of startups. But it's bringing those companies all the way through to finding those global global players. That's the real challenge. Looking at some of the Halton numbers suggests that we have we have the scaling up issue in our backyard. In terms of the number of companies that are exporting, and our averages in terms of export propensity, a little bit lower than the Canadian average, the Ontario average. So that's a call to action. As well, the R&D numbers that we see. We know that research and development is going to be pivotal for global companies. And I want to just talk about the provincial alignment, because this is where the province has signaled through its Ontario budget 2016, through the Ontario Business Growth Initiative, as well as their Going Global strategy. This is where the Ontario government is going with a lot of its economic development priorities. So for us to orient ourselves towards that is a very strong alignment, again, with our provincial counterparts. We saw just this week with the cabinet announcements that Ontario's put forward its first standalone Ministry of International Trade. So again, another outward signal that trade matters, scaling up matters. A couple of weeks ago, we had the Assistant Deputy Minister of Research and Innovation speak at Haltech and Small Business Conference called Halton Futures. He talked about where the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurship is going, and it's exactly this, scaling up and helping companies go global. So with that in mind, in terms of the provincial alignment, we actually looked at what's happening here in the Halton situation. And so we had a company called MDB Insight. This is the same organization that I believe has worked with Burlington and other communities here in Halton, as well as ourselves with our own economic development strategy 5 years ago. They helped us survey companies here in the region, so it was really a focus on small and medium-sized enterprises, 2/3 small companies, 1/3 medium-sized establishments, with small companies being 1 to 99 employees, by the way. And what really came back was, yes, there are concerns about going global. There are costs that are out there, and the report outlines some of the concerns that companies do have going onto the global stage. So it isn't for the faint of heart. You do need resources, and you do need a mindset to go global. And all those things are necessary. In terms of some of the courses or programming that they might be looking at, as you can see from the slide, marketing research, business strategy, business processes are things that are germane to companies that want to scale up and hit the world market. And finally, one of the central elements of the MDB study was that co-location with Haltech and our Small Business Enterprise Center or the Economic Development Division actually would be part of the foundation towards that service delivery for going global. And I'll speak to that in the next slides. So a little bit about the Region's Small Business Enterprise Center, or SBEC, as we've got there in the acronyms. The slide's a little bit dark in terms of what our resource center looks like. It is much sunnier than that. But it's just located to the right of our main reception, right here at the Halton Regional Center. And really the primary purpose for the Small Business Enterprise Center is to provide one-on-one consultations with small business owners and entrepreneurs, helping them to start up, manage, or grow their businesses. We do have a resource center with print material, as well, of course, online material, so clients can get access to online databases for sales and marketing, market intelligence, and we also allow them to use our computers. We have Wi-Fi, free parking. So we have a number of things that actually make it a business center that business clients come to every day. Probably in terms of traffic, we're about 10 to maybe 12 people coming in every day for consultations and for browsing around our center. So it actually is a hub of activity. Here's some other stats, I guess, with respect to the Small Business Enterprise Center, just to share a little bit of where we've been as an organization and the link back to the province. So first and foremost, it is a largely regional taxpayer-funded organization. However, we do get some funding from the province. That supports approximately 1 business consultant position. So we have 3 business consultants, and the provincial funding helps us with one of the positions. So we're one of 57 centers across the province, so there are a lot of these organizations. But this is unique for Halton insofar as it is the only small business enterprise center in Halton. So we serve the entire community. And I think it's important to note that we serve the entire community not from here, but across the community. So where we know that travel times are problematic coming from Milton and coming from Halton Hills, we're in the community. We have a consultant on-site program in both Milton and Halton Hills twice a month in each of those communities, which means that we're there speaking with entrepreneurs in their own community. We've got great partnerships with the libraries that allows us to use their facilities, Georgetown, Burlington, and in Milton. That works really well for us. We're also in the Milton Education Village Innovation Center, or MEVIC. And, of course, the Halton Multicultural Council, because New Canadians has been a very strong part of our service delivery over the last 2 years. So you can see some of the client stats that we've got. We're typically dealing with well over 1,100 consultations per year. And our focus is on Main Street businesses. So think of solo entrepreneurs, retail, personal services, et cetera. But over time, and I think as you look at the complexity of the people who work in our region, we've got people coming to our offices every day with great ideas about scaling their business, whether it's retail or otherwise, and going global. So that's sort of part and parcel of who we've got in our backyard. We've got entrepreneurs who may have had a side idea. They're getting out of industry and they're coming into our offices. So it just speaks to the talent that we have in our community. So there's finally some of our numbers in terms of business startups and creating jobs. It's largely a focus on startups, but we also work with small SMEs. So typically that's going to be a young company, early stage company, under 10 employees. Okay, a little bit about Haltech. So I'm not sure Council really knows a ton about Haltech. I shouldn't presume that, but I know that I haven't reported on Haltech over the last number of years, and I was actually surprised to see that they have been around for 5 years. I do want to start off by saying Haltech came about as a result of actual efforts between the region and the local economic development offices to have our own Made in Halton Regional Innovation Center presence. So as a RIC, that's the acronym, Haltech is one of 17 RICs across the province. There's a number of them in the Greater Toronto area. This is ours. So their catchment area, like the Small Business Enterprise Center, is all of Halton. Like us, they need to be distributive in terms of their service delivery. It can't just be out of one place. And so like us, they do seminars and events around the community. So very much allied to what we do with the Small Business Enterprise Center. Their services are very much aligned with ours. They provide business advisory services just like we do. The volume numbers are different. They're dealing with a smaller number of companies. What they're working with are typically technology companies. You'll see it in the information communications technology, digital media, life sciences realm, typically where you've got intellectual property. And so they're going to help those companies bring those great ideas to market. So they're already kind of in the scaling up game. They're already in the game in terms of helping these companies access venture capital as well as research and development grants, things through the NRC, National Research Council, et cetera. And maybe I'll just close with respect to Haltech by saying we're also providing some support to them. We did with their predecessor organization and had that come through council, and we've continued with that support with Haltech. Largely a provincially funded organization now. So the Small Business Enterprise Center, as well as Haltech, are members of the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs. So these are the provincial business support organizations in Halton. So a little bit more about the co-location. One of the things that the MDB study identified, and certainly it was obvious to us as we look at how other regions have done things. And one of the best practices, or an emerging best practice, is to look at that co-location between an entrepreneurship center, like an SBEC, as well as a regional innovation center. So we're seeing that take place in Niagara, in downtown St. Catharines. We're seeing it in the city of Markham, in York Region. And Ottawa is another example where they've brought everything all together. So there's a lot of synergies that come along with that. I think one of the things that you'll see between our group and the Haltech organization is that we have a lot of crossover in terms of our clients, in terms of the issues that they're dealing with, the management issues, the workforce issues, the how do you scale up issues. And so a lot of those are germane to both clients, whether they're technology clients or Main Street clients. There simply put, there are companies here in our region that want to grow. And so that's where we have a lot of commonalities. So we can share mentorships and mentors, which is something we're already doing. And we can share best practices and other things. So these are some of the synergies that come about of having a co-location practice. And so with all that, if you like, this co-location is the framework or the foundation for creating a new area of service delivery, which we've called the Halton Global Business Center. So with that, and maybe just operationally a little bit of how that would work, Haltech would continue to have its core mandate, which is provincially driven, provincial mandate, and the Small Business Enterprise Centre would continue to have its mandate, which includes youth, which includes new Canadians, and the like, and we will continue to focus on those clients. So it's really at the intersection of these two organizations is where we believe that we can provide a new value-added programming area. So this is where we believe that the sweet spot is. Let's take the synergies that we already know exist and will be further leveraged, bring those together, and create a new programming area, which includes exporting and which includes scale-up. And so what we've talked in the report is that this is not going to happen overnight. A co-location with an organization in our Halton Regional Center, to the best of my knowledge, has never happened in all of our years here at the region. So this is a new thing. There are many things to be dealt with in terms of that opportunity, and I'm sure we will deal with them. But it is a phase-in approach to this. But in 2017, what I believe we'll be able to offer is a new slate of programming for exporting. We've done some of this in the past, and in fact, our Small Business Enterprise Centre already does deliver some exporting. But we have an ability to add additional seminars, awareness-building seminars. Maybe we're bringing back the Halton Export Forum, which we had in 2013, new and improved. And then I would also say the Scale-Up program will introduce some seminars on scale-up. That will help us identify those growth companies and entrepreneurs in the area. And in 2018, we'll come forward with a comprehensive program on scaling up. It does have to be done the right way. When we look at jurisdictions, and in the United States, it has a number of different organizations, public, nonprofit, state, municipal, etc. There are a number of organizations that are trying to crack this nut, if you like. And the approaches vary widely. I know that the Ontario government is looking at a voucher system for its innovative growth firms, which are, of course, if they're Ontario's innovative growth firms, some of them could be Halton's innovative growth firms. Other jurisdictions are looking at acceleration programs, mentor-driven, cohort-driven. They're time-sensitive, and so it's a graduated program. So there's a number of different approaches. I think I'll finally leave that comment to say that this is not just about the region and Haltech getting it all figured out. This is also going to include the local municipal directors and those offices, because when we're talking about working with the companies that are here in our region, the local municipalities are absolutely part of the ecosystem. So it's a partnership that brings the economic development offices at the two levels and Haltech much closer together, and that's something that the province has said is a best practice, and we believe in our own minds that is a best practice. So I'm just going to finish with the current status and our next steps. The Haltech Board of Directors recently dealt with this staff report recommendation, if you like, in terms of exploring the co-location, and that has been supported by the Board of Directors. I'm here today to answer any questions you may have on this presentation and/or the report itself, and we'll come back to Council. We're planning in September 2016 with some further information and costs. So with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. We do have some questions. Councillor Sharman.
Thanks for that, John, because I must admit I read the report and I was wondering what it said. The key question for me is when you talk about scale up and export, I'm left wondering what you mean by that.
In terms, sorry.
Well, the term export, I mean, so global marketing, so how are we going to do that?
Well, I think we're part of a larger ecosystem, which includes private sector resources, which includes federal and provincial resources. One of the things, Councillor, that came through the study was the fact that a number of organizations give up going through what seems to be a bit of a jumble in terms of different organizations that are providing services, especially on the public sector front. So I think it's helping some of those companies navigate through who's the right trade commissioner offices, what's happening with the provincial government with respect to in-market missions and the like. Those are some of the things that we can bring to the table through this program. But I would also say that it's building awareness for exporting and the steps that are required. I think we still have a significant road to go down in terms of building awareness for exporting. That is still an educational process for our small SMEs. We would, of course, love to have more of them just initially thinking they're born global. But at the end of the day, we're not the only solutions provider on this. There's a mix of private and public sector organizations that are involved with this. But I think we can start galvanizing the Halton focus, get the right companies to the right people. That's one of the things that we'll offer. But certainly on the education side, we believe there's a value-added necessity there.
Thank you for that. I guess my thought is there are an awful lot of people out there, different services, but navigating those, I could see the point, which means that you have to have a pretty broad knowledge, and your team has to be a pretty broad knowledge. The next point I had was with respect to Haltech. I can see why that would be a very logical partnership, given the degree to which now we're seeing evolution of technology. So that would be very helpful. But then raises the question about partnerships. And so there are two partnerships I'm curious about right now. The first one, of course, is the Toronto marketing thing. What are we talking about with that? How does this interact with that? Are we thinking we're going to replace that?
So I think through you, Madam Chair, I think the quick answer to that is never the one that I can supply. But the less than quick answer would be to say that I see them as two separate, discrete entities. They're on separate sides of the economic development spectrum. So when I think of Toronto Global, and what I know of Toronto Global, is the fact that it is an outward international marketing organization that's chief, primary, and sole priority is to bring back new foreign direct investment. Hopefully that will be in the form of greenfield investment, i.e. companies that want to establish a beachhead here in Canada in the GTA, and they set up a new office, a new facility, etc. That's the very smallest slice of foreign direct investment that you get. So much more of it is going to be through merger and acquisition and other sort of direct investments. But that's not the slice that they're going after. So Toronto Global is not a trade organization. They have international aspirations, but that's as far as that connection goes. It is simply put, it's a foreign direct investment attraction agency. They have already walked down the road with the municipalities and other stakeholders and have realized that trade is relatively well serviced in many respects. They certainly didn't need to be in that game. So the two of them are linked in terms of global and international outlook, but this is the project that we have here is really about turning our minds to the companies that are here and working with networks. But Toronto Global won't even be part of the service delivery.
Great, thank you. Because they're lead generators, we're not.
Correct.
Got it. The next one, of course, is a partnership with the Burlington Economic Development Corporation. How will those two pieces fit together?
So I'm certainly, through you, Madam Chair, I'm certainly alive to the possibilities for mid to long-term efforts in the City of Burlington in terms of an innovation district, where certainly I'm well aware of the strategic plan that the city has and its vision. I believe the Haltech Board of Directors and the Haltech Management Group are also aware of that. And so I think, I think it's probably a good idea to say that this plan, which has a vision of, let's say, 3 to 5 years as a phase-in plan, I think the Haltech Group would also look at it from that perspective as well. Maybe this is an interim step for Haltech towards a longer-term plan where they might be able to be in an external innovation district. So it certainly fits in with the timing, I would say, of a Burlington, if that was to open up as an opportunity. Haltech is an organization. I know that Frank McEwen is a board director on the organization, and so certainly I think that the board as a whole is very much understanding that communities in Halton are also very interested in the innovation space. And so I think Haltech, like our Small Business Enterprise Center, has to be able to respond to community demands and community pressures. And so I would say, and just as a note for all councillors, that we don't see this as a centralization of services. I see this more as a solidifying where Haltech's home is and allowing them to be that much more capable to provide their services, whether it's going to be in Milton through the Innovation Center in Milton, or through Burlington, through anything that they have.
Thanks, John. It's very helpful. So now I think I understand it. What you're saying is that this initiative is going to be providing consulting services to people who are at stages of change and they need some help to navigate. BEDC is about driving relationships with established corporations into Burlington, and global marketing, Global Toronto is a lead generator. So I see they're all quite different. Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess a couple of very quick observations there. The first one is I'm very supportive of what's being advocated here, by the way. But on the averages, as pointed out, only 4% of Halton business were exporting in 2015, and 10% of Canadian. Well, we at Halton are much, much lower than that. And I just wonder if there was a reason for that, as far as you're aware. And I guess one of the statistics there that's really interesting to me as well is only 1% of Halton business were conducting research and development. So I just wonder if you have any gut feeling as to why, because quite often in Halton we're leading provincial, quite often we're leading Canadian, and certainly, you know, in many fields. So I just wonder what we weren't doing right in this regard.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I agree with the mayor in terms of what those numbers look like. For me, they were alarming as well. I believe the research and development number, that's probably really not far off the Canadian mark. We've seen, I think, a small decline over the last couple of years in terms of the organizations that are conducting R&D. The overall, I should say, the overall R&D spend, and that has been, there's a number of, a lot of the R&D spend or research and development spend is by very large companies, and as we've seen some corporate shake-up in corporate Canada, some of those numbers have tumbled, bringing down the overall number. But I would say that percentage is not far off. The exporting number is quite honestly a little puzzling to me. I would agree with everything the mayor has said, that you know, Halton is a leader with our proximity to the United States. It does seem jarring. I don't have a quick explanation for it, but I certainly think that we can do better, and I'm surprised that we're not already at the Ontario number, if not more. So that was a surprising number that came out of our employment survey.
Madam Chair, the other question is with regards to buy-in from the 4 area municipalities. Whereabouts are we at with that? And again, I know we're early on, but I'm sure that you probably have a sense of that, and there may be some overlap with regards to, you know, some of the previous questioning. But, and I know every once in a while when we get into these types of programs, the word duplication quite often comes into play. So I want to try to avoid that. So maybe you can just raise my comfort level on the possibilities of duplications at local and regional levels.
Right. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Our report did try to go through a bit of our history of service delivery. You know, being at the regional level, it's one of the first things that I think about is, you know, if we're going to augment one of our services, is that already happening at the local level? We understand that 100%. And so the consultations have taken place with the 4 local municipalities. I can't say here today that, you know, philosophically, all 4 directors at the economic development offices understand the direction in terms of looking at scaling up, especially. That was seen as an area where we really need to do more as an economic development group. The co-location with Haltech, I would say there's probably, it's probably safe to say there's probably a few, there might be a bit of ambivalence about that, because I think as we've seen, I mean, communities have evolved over time. Milton has its own Education Village Innovation Center. I know it's no secret to you, Mr. Mayor, that you want to see a strong presence of Haltech there and the Small Business Enterprise Center there. So there is that element to it, and I think we will respond by saying that where we really fit in on all of this, working with the local municipalities, is that we are service delivery partners. And so I'd love to be able to say, and I think I can say this quite truthfully, that we will be there for the local municipalities as they refer companies to us. That's where we want to be. We want to be the referral that provides value-added services to a Burlington company, Halton Hills company, et cetera. So the directors are on board with the overall philosophy. I think it's fair to say that they're going to have to roll up their sleeves with us, but I think the important thing is we're all there at the table together, and we're going to figure this out, because I think it's too important for us not to do it together. And certainly you'll have my commitment that it will only be done in partnership with the local municipalities, and we'll be concerned about duplication every step along the way.
Madam Chair, right at the outset, I said that I'm supportive of what's being advocated, and thank you.
Councilor Mira.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Davis, I'm wondering what the response from Halton's BIAs was to this proposal.
Through you, Madam Chair, the BIAs haven't really been part of I don't think they were part of the consultation, Councillor, so this hasn't landed on their desks yet. But I guess I could say, with respect to our service delivery, and probably it's a good time to reiterate this, our Small Business Enterprise Centre doesn't become overnight a Halton Global Business Centre that doesn't deal with retail and personal services. Far from it. We continue to have that core mandate. So any business improvement area that wants to engage with us in terms of helping their retail members through issues, we're absolutely open door on that.
I'm just trying to put my head around this, and there was a great session at FCM on the digitalization and retail and those intersections, and I've been struggling over the past couple years to find out exactly what the role is that the region has on economic development. And everything I've read, it says small business. And our primary, the ones in our community, in Oakville at least, who are struggling the most are our Main Street small business areas. So in the past, when I've gone to our lower tier municipality, I've gone to Oakville, and I said, well, what are we doing here? Well, that's the region. The region deals with the small businesses. We don't get involved with that. And then I'm looking at the move that we're making here, and I'm trying to figure out how this is going to help the Main Street areas, the small business areas that I heard an incredible stat that 25% of them still don't have a website. And it seems that we're leaping over that, and I hear a lot of, Shopify, Hootsuite, all the sexy technology startups, but we haven't even been able to give the assistance to the Main Street businesses who do employ most of our local people that they need. And I'm wondering how this, or where is the gap that we're going to help those people in, and how does this help address those businesses that are struggling to have a website, to do the most basic stuff. I mean, it seems like we have a very passive system here where the door is open, come in if you want it, but in another sense, we're aggressively pursuing how do we scale up businesses that are the sexy ones ready for the lurch. And I feel that we're leaving those other businesses behind that are struggling right now, and they're losing out to the Amazons, and they don't know how to do these sorts of things. So I'm wondering if we're not leaving a large segment of our businesses behind that, from a regional perspective, under what I understand to be our mandate, we're responsible for helping.
Excuse me, through you, Madam Chair. I hope that won't be the case, and I will make sure that isn't the case, because as I said, the Small Business Enterprise Centre will continue its focus on Main Street businesses, retail businesses being a big chunk of that. And to your point in the question related to being proactive in that space versus reactive, I do take your point. I know that we have worked with town economic development staff in terms of bringing our resources to the, I think it was most recently to the Brawny BIA, and certainly encouraging those companies, the retail organizations, to come back and work with us. I know in days gone by, there were some discussions with the downtown Burlington BIA in the neighboring city community with respect to a retail program. So, I understand where you're coming from with the question, because I do see that retail is at a bit of a crossroads right now in many respects. So maybe that's something that we could be tasked to look along with our our colleagues at the town level in terms of is there a program that could be put together, events, seminars, et cetera, that we might actually work with retailers. These are things that we're open to. And I understand the concern, but I don't think we leave that behind. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davidson. I just have one last question. It has to do with Silicon Halton as well, and they seem to be doing a lot of things that I'm reading here that you want to push as well. And I know they're more of a grassroots organization, but I think they would probably be a very good asset to sort of work with. And I don't know if for the second part about exploring space, I don't know if there would be sort of flex space involved in that space for other organizations of a similar vein to use, but it might be something to consider in the exploration if there are young companies that might need some temporary office space, but there might be some great synergies with Haltech and Halton Region. That might be something to consider as well.
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly thank you for that question and comment. Certainly I know the Haltech organization and what we've seen in almost any other regional innovation center organization is some space for business incubation. So in many of these situations, it's a number of different service providers coming together, private, public sector organizations. Providing incubator space is a typical offering. So I would say probably chances are with our existing situation, I don't think we'll probably first and foremost we won't have the space for that. But I certainly think it's a vision that a lot of regional innovation center organizations, small business enterprise centers, have gone down that road. So you're absolutely on the right path. It probably won't be for this phase, if you like, but it could be for future considerations. And Silicon Halton, well known to our organization as well as Haltech, they are a fantastic grassroots feeder system. They're also very important in terms of youth entrepreneurship and getting. So they've been a very successful organization.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions? I have one. I'll make it a short one. And it's a follow-up, actually, to Councillor Sharman's question. I do appreciate your distinguishing between the three groups, the Toronto Global and the Economic Development groups in our municipalities, and this particular project. But it seems to me that if you are trying to, ramp up businesses here in Burlington so that they could, or in Halton Region so that they can go global, then a huge resource would be those businesses that we are attracting that are already, from other countries to the Halton Region. And I would think that it would be very, very valuable to make sure that that connection exists so that the two groups are communicating back and forth and you're providing opportunities between the ones that are ramping up and the ones that are, moving in this direction. Because they have valuable insight as to what it takes to work in their country. So I would just like to bring that to your attention. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Would it be the pleasure of the committee to move this item? It has been moved. All in favor, and that carries. Thank you very much. So we are now going to go to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. These are items that are considered to be the normal course of business at the region. But if someone would like to ask a question or discuss any item, great. So all 3 items have been moved. All in favor? And that carries. We have dealt with the regular agenda item number 4, and we now go to the confidential portion of the meeting. There are 3 items under this section. Does anyone need to go into camera? No. They have been moved. All in favor, and that carries. Can I have a motion to receive all the miscellaneous items? All in favor, and that carries. No other business, and we'll call for adjournment. That's been moved. All in favor, and that carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.